Hi everyone, Mike here with Moto Mecha. Today we're going to bleed the front brake on a Ducati 748. So you can see here, fluid looks pretty brownish. Fluid should be pretty darn clear. So we're going to go through the process of bleeding the front brake on this Ducati. First step would be to remove this brake fluid reservoir cap. Since I can't really get to it with a screwdriver because of the windscreen, I'm going to use this 90-degree Phillips screwdriver just to get these broken loose. I'll just grab a little Phillips bit, do it by hand. Remove these screws, remove the cap. And you can see it's looking pretty dirty. Next step, I'm going to vacuum all that old brake fluid out of the master cylinder reservoir with my Mighty Vac tool right here. I want to show you a very typical brake fluid reservoir. It's got a lot of dirt, brake hose particles, old nasty stuff. So you really want to clean this out before you proceed onto the next step. So this next step, I'm going to use a napkin or a paper towel to get in there and try to clean out as much of that old brake fluid and dirt as much as I can. And then I'll use some Q-tips and get in there and get every nook and cranny. Next step would be to fill your reservoir with some fresh DOT4 brake fluid. Make sure you check your service manual what kind of brake fluid your bike takes. One thing I like to do when I'm bleeding the brakes, I set the brake lever on the farthest out setting. So that way the lever's the farthest away from the bar, and that way I have more of a throw and I can pump more fluid through. As I go through the brake bleeding process, I want to maintain enough fluid in this reservoir so that it doesn't suck air through the system while I'm bleeding. If you end up sucking air through the system, you're going to have to start all over again, and that just costs time. Alright, so the next step would be to crack open a bleeder and start pumping brake fluid through. So the next step would be to bleed the brakes on one of the calipers. So I'll start on the right caliper and then I'll work my way over to the left caliper. Remove the dust cover. And for this Brembo bleeder, it's an 11mm wrench. So I put the box end wrench on first, and then I'll slip over the bleeding hose. I kind of just jam it on the end of that brake bleeder, and that way the fluid will come out into the fluid, not all over the place. So the brake bleed process is to pump the brakes a couple times, make sure you got good brake pressure, hold the lever, crack open your bleeder, let the fluid come out, let the lever go all the way to the bar, hold it there, close your bleeder, not super tight, just snug it up. Do a couple of pumps on your brake lever till the brake pressure builds up. Hold it there, crack open the bleeder, let that lever go all the way to the bar, hold it there, close the bleeder. Repeat that process as many times as you think you need to till that brake fluid comes out nice and clear. So now let's just demonstrate the brake bleeding process. Pump, pump, hold, release, close, pump, 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 hold, release, close, pump, pump, pump. You just want to keep doing that to get a nice, good flush. You want to look for any bubbles coming out, and once it's nice and clear and there's no more bubbles coming out, you're all set on this side. Now hopefully you got good pressure at your brake lever. If you don't, then there might be air still in the lines. So keep going, do both sides, and then see if your brake pressure is good. Now that I've done the right side, I'm going to top off my brake fluid. So I don't want to run the risk of it getting low. Now that I'm done with the right side, I'm going to pull this hose off, but I'm going to apply some vacuum so I don't drip fluid all over the place. Pull my wrench off. One thing I like to do is clean out all that brake fluid inside of that bleeder, so I'll stick the straw in here. And I'll just clean all that brake fluid out so it doesn't start dripping all over the place. Then I'll blow it out and replace the dust cap. Now I'm going to move over to the left side, repeat the whole process over there. Next, I'll top off the brake reservoir. I like to do about halfway to 2/3 of the way up. You can see there's a max and a minimum, so anywhere between there is fine. Then I want to rinse and clean all this out. You can see how much junk and nasty corrosion is in there. So for this, I usually just rinse it off in the sink. Now that I've cleaned and dried this brake reservoir cap, I'll go ahead and put it back on. You want to make sure you didn't put too much fluid in there. You'll know that if you put the cap on and it starts overflowing all over the place, that you put too much in. A little bit of an air gap between the fluid and the cap is okay. Cap on, screws in. Install the screws. Last step would be to double check your brake pressure. Don't forget to set the lever back to the position it was at, or wherever you like it. Well, I hope that video was helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments, and I'll make sure and reply.